G'day Bomber fans, we have got some juicy trade news. I love these videos. I know you guys like them, but I really like making them because I am a proper nerd for the trade and draft. Lots going on. There are, the later we get into the year, the juicier this all gets. It has actually been an eventful week or so. There's been lots of Essendon trade news, so there's plenty to talk about. Before we do get into it though, just keep an eye out this weekend, guys. I may be hopping over to another channel for a cheeky live stream on Sunday, if that eventuates. I'll let you know if it happens, so keep an eye out on Twitter, Blue Sky, and here. It has to do with the draft, okay? So Adam Swade, Hussein Elechkar, big figures in Essendon's future, so keep an eye out. But let's get into the video. Starting with the biggest news to come out in the last few days, Sam Draper, unrestricted free agent. He has the Crows keen on him since last year, given his links to South Australia. Even with those links, the club has remained confident that Draper would stay. But in the last few days, the narrative has changed slightly. It started with comments that Sam McClure made. He claimed that his mail suggested that Draper would leave at the end of the season. And look, we can take anything McClure says with a grain of salt, but those comments were then backed up by a Herald Sun report that claimed Draper and Essendon were some way apart in negotiations, and that potentially the financial aspect isn't forcing Draper to put pen to paper straight away. The worry now is the recent development from Cal Toomey. He has thrown Brisbane in the ring for Draper, joining the Crows, and it might not sound like much, a club hunting a star player. It happens all the time, but it does show that clubs think Draper is gettable, and that seems to be the growing feeling around the joint. Draper is not a given to stay at Essendon. There is still a long way to go. Some think he's gone. But yeah, there's a bit of uncertainty with the whole situation. Draper is taking his time to think it through, which makes sense. He'd be silly not to play the market a bit. And maybe this is a ploy from his management to get us to bump up the dollars on his contract. But yeah, at the moment, it is not a certainty that Draper stays with the club. It's probably more likely that he does, I think. But there's a long way to go now. And also, as for compensation, I still think it would be first round, but hopefully by the end of the month, I'll have someone else on the channel that could explain that a bit better than me. More big news to come out recently, Harley Reid. So Tom Morris believes that Harley's tune has potentially changed. It was kind of thought that at the end of the year, Reid would attempt to secure a trade back to Victoria, and that is still a feeling. But according to Tom Morris, Reid has started to show signs that he may like life over West, and he could be willing to stay put with the Eagles at least until the end of the season. A good way for him to show some faith would be to sign the flexible contract the Eagles put in front of him, and until that's done, clubs probably believe that he could be lured away. And Essendon are not the only club keen. There's plenty, but we do have serious links to Reid, both on the playing list and coaching staff. There's also the fact that we have cash and capital to get a trade done, unlike other teams. I think we're still right in the race and probably right up near the top if he was to, I guess, head out of the Eagles. And look, Sam McClure, he did say we wouldn't be getting him. Like I said before, you can never really trust anything McClure says. I usually go with the opposite of what McClure says, so we can be welcoming Reid in at the end of the year. And honestly, guys, I should say, I'm starting to change my tune a bit here with Reid. I'm looking at the draft. I am a big believer in going towards the draft, but I really wouldn't mind us splashing some cash and picks to bring a player like Harley Reid into the club. I think that's a topic for its own video, but I'm definitely leaning a bit towards that side now, whereas earlier in the year I was thinking it was all draft. But yeah, at the moment, Reid is still contracted. We might not even have a look at him, to be honest. He's playing decent footy at the Eagles, looks happier there now, so maybe he does stay put. Plenty of time left in the year, though. Brandon Starcevich. So we are one of a few clubs keen on the Lions defender. A few things here. He is yet to play since that concussion earlier in the year. His career is kind of in a strange spot. It is tough to really know how durable he'll be in the coming years, because another head knock, soon could really change things. But as it stands right now, he is tracking well from his lingering concussion symptoms, and he will likely play within the next month. So that is obviously, it's got a big say in what happens with his future, whether it be with Brisbane, Essendon, or another club. The other thing here is what happens if we do bring him in. So this will probably be explained better when the situation, or I guess if the situation arises, but if a club brings in a free agent while letting one go, that's if Draper was to leave, it does mess with the compensation. That is all I can really say without going into long detail that might not even be necessary if Starcevich doesn't hop across to us. But if those links get stronger, we can go into detail. But as for now, all he's thinking about is getting back on the park. He's a couple of weeks away still. Matt Rowell, there is still no movement on his contract, and that obviously has plenty at Gold Coast a bit stressed, I'd say. if he was all in on the Suns, he would have signed by now. That goes without saying. So he is clearly having a think about his options, and he does have options. The Dogs are keen, Geelong are keen, Essendon are keen. We've all met with Rowell. Vic clubs are big on him. And yeah, even if members at the Suns have come out and said that they're confident, which they have, it is not a given that he stays. I think the fact that there has been no news since we last spoke is probably more telling than anything. Every month he remains unsigned, it seems a bit more likely that he could seek a move away. To be fair, the Suns are playing great footy. They're in the top 4. He's playing with his mate Noah Anderson. He's having fun, building a team there. So, look, it's fair to assume that he stays put at the Gold Coast Suns. But yeah, the longer this goes on, let's just say there's plenty left to go through there. And just swinging back to a current bomber, Tsatas. At the time of recording, we don't know if he's in for the game against Carlton, but there's a very good chance that he is dropped, which would just sum up his year and career, really. He's doing heaps in the resis, but not quite getting a proper crack at AFL level. And of course, with that now comes trade speculation. Even last year there were talks of trades, but according to Cal Toomey, there are now clubs circling Tsatas, which is understandable. There are plenty of teams out there that would be able to fit him into their midfield mix, because at the moment, unfortunately, we've got plenty of injuries, but our midfield is fit. Dylan Shealer's tearing up in the resis and can't get a game. Tsatas is on the outer. Parrish is only just coming back in. Yeah, I feel like he could easily be tempted by a club like Richmond or St Kilda, one who could promise him minutes, because that's not what he's getting at Essendon. So yeah, there is definitely smoke here. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Tsatas is 100% a player to watch come the end of the year, and if he doesn't start getting games, he could request a trade. Keep in mind, he is contracted till next season, though. And just to chuck a bunch of gettable names all at once, potential targets for the Dons. Here are a group of out-of-contract players that I think are either gettable or good fits for the club. We start with Connor Buderick, an out-of-favour Gold Coast defender who we've been keen on in the past. He hasn't played more than 10 games in a season since 2020. Very tough player, but definitely one on radars of clubs. Dev Robertson continues to be on the outer at Brisbane. He's probably more of an option to WA teams, though. Neil Erasmus is in a similar boat to Tsatas, promising high draft pick who hasn't been able to play much for his club. Same with Tom Berry, both those players are definitely on the outer and could be options. Malcolm Roses Jr. is out of contract. We've been keen on him in the past, but we do have quite a few small forwards on our list. Cal Brown is a bigger forward, possibly a good depth option if needed. Jai Sarong at Hawthorn, big swing man, still quite young, has shown glimpses and would definitely be looking for opportunities elsewhere, you'd think, because he just isn't getting games. And Angus Sheldrick, his name has been on whiteboards across the country. He's seen as a gettable player and is actually a pretty hyped player. So yeah, those are just a few names I'd be thinking about. Not all suit the club. Some are just being talked about. Some aren't being talked about but should. Feel free to throw any other names in the comments below. And on the flip side, we have to talk about our current list situation. So we've got 47 players on our list right now. Over 15 are out of contract. We've got 4 picks in the draft plus academy kids coming through. I don't think we're going to use all 4 of those picks. We also have trade targets though, and we've just added 4 mid-season draftees. What this now does is it creates a very interesting situation for Matt Rosa, who not only needs to delist some unlucky players, but probably has to put some up for trade to free up list spots. Last year we took 7 players in the draft, 2 as SSP recruits. We added 9 players before the season started. If we wanted to do that again, we would need to get rid of, definitely over 10 players, probably closer to, a lot of players. And look, I don't think we will be bringing in as many players this time round, but to bring in new list members, we need some already there to be gone. Possibly even some that aren't out of contract. So on screen now are players that I think could potentially be either forced out of the club or leave on their own terms in the trade space, not just delisting. Starting with Darcy Parish. At the time of recording, he is yet to play for us this year. He'll play this weekend. He hasn't played a full season since 2021. Injuries have hurt him pretty bad. And there have always been links to him with Geelong. Maybe this is the year he seeks a fresh start, and it wouldn't be unreasonable to suggest we let him go to free up our salary cap and give us some more draft picks. The next couple of guys are ones that tried to leave already. Shewar's moved to St Kilda, fell through. Laverty was shopped around but stayed on our list. They're both older on our list and, on the outer. Maybe they're given away for cheap. Same as Stringer last year. Matt Guelphy is someone I've always thought about in this market. He's a West Aussie, good role player, in and out through injury, but one of those clubs over West could do with him. You got Nick Cox, Jai Menzies, Elijah Tsatas, Hobbs. It really wouldn't surprise me to see any of these guys put on the market. Obviously, all won't be. Most will probably still be with us, you'd think, but Rosa would be currently thinking about ways to build the list, cull Dodoro's work, and give us availability for the draft and trade period. And a good way to do that would be to trade players that aren't necessarily in our future plans. And I think there's question marks over all these players that I've got on screen as to whether they fit in the future plans or not. And before we go, we're thinking well into the future here, but pick trading. So Essendon aren't the only team with academy players this year in the draft. Hussein El-Achkar and Adam Swade will both probably be in that late first, early second round discussion, I'd say. And it'll all depend on what happens at Champs. Again, stay tuned. Possibly I'll be somewhere on Sunday talking about those guys a fair bit because I'll be watching them play. That's exciting. But there are going to be clubs that are not looking to offload, but I guess desperate to offload their first round picks this year. Remember last year we traded with Melbourne. We sent our first rounder to them to avoid it getting eaten up in a Kako bid. There'll be similar stories this year with 3 clubs in particular, at least 3. But Gold Coast, Brisbane and Sydney. Those 3 teams have players in their academies that could be bidded on early on draft night 1. Gold Coast and Brisbane in particular would lose those first round picks they currently have to any bids on the night. So what they're going to do, or try and do, is send those first rounders away to build up capital to match bids with later picks. And maybe with some future sweeteners chucked in as well. So look at the position we're in this year, right? That is all because of that Melbourne trade. So Gold Coast will need to trade pick 4, pick 15 and maybe 18. And what they'll be trying to do is not only enhance their hand next year, but get some, second round quality in this year. The Lions will need to trade pick 17. Sydney might need to trade their picks, especially if they rise up the ladder. And the way the draft bidding system works, I said second rounders before, but without going into detail, you can't just build up on late picks to gather capital anymore. It is actually second and third rounders that give you the points. So Essendon currently has 2 second rounders. Those picks would be eaten up in a bid for Swade and Huss, so what we may look to do is give those second rounders away and an additional future pick or 2 maybe to a team like Gold Coast in exchange for possibly a high pick. And with that pick in the draft, we could either take an elite player or use it for trade. Even if we don't do that, we'll still be looking to offload those second rounders somewhere, probably for later picks to ensure we can match a deal. So what I'm trying to say is we've got options. There are many things we could be doing. Rose has already proven to be pretty smart with pick dealing. We took 7 players in last year's national draft without a first round pick. 4 of which have already made their debut, and we did that while improving our hand this year as well. So pick trading is 100% going to be a constant factor in this year's off-season, not just for the Bombers, but plenty of clubs. And I think these 3 teams on screen, Gold Coast, Brisbane and Sydney, those are the ones to watch with Essendon. But yeah, trade news done for the month. Well, maybe. I am trying to bring on a guest who can answer some questions. Hopefully that sorts itself out. If not, I'll see you guys this time in July to talk more trade news. But yeah, cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Make sure you like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.